Gender lines in sports. For some teens, high school is an exciting time. It is a time when friendships are formed, passions for the future are born, and they find their identity. For many students, however, high school is not a place of educational enrichment and enjoyment. It is a time of fear and persecution, in which they must fight simply to be who they are. One of the most popular American traditions is joining a high school sports team. Yet for transgender students, this dream is often met with horrifying resistance. The same discriminatory organizations which seek to prohibit trans people from using public restrooms leads the attacks on transgender students who only wish to engage in school sports for the same reasons as their cisgender peers, to gain a feeling of belonging and social acceptance. As Megan Rapinoe posits, quote, "Just like it was never about restrooms, today's fight is not about sports. It's about erasing and excluding trans people from participating in all aspects of public life, and in the process, harming some of the most vulnerable young people in the country," end quote. These students only want to participate with their cisgender peers for the love of the sport. And in fact, leading advocates for women's sports support inclusion of girls and women who are transgender. Anti-trans laws create safety and privacy concerns and discriminate against transgender youth. In Idaho, Governor Brad Little signed into law a bill that bans girls who are trans from playing sports on a girls' team in high school or college. This law, the first of its kind in the U.S., set a dangerous precedent in the country, which enabled other states and school districts to follow suit and to take even more civil liberties away from transgender kids and their families. For example, less than a year later, on May 13, 2022, Texas Supreme Court, quote, "cleared the way for the state child welfare agency to resume investigating parents and doctors who provide gender-affirming care for trans youth. Actions that Governor Greg Abbott has equated to child abuse," end quote. All across the country, numerous states have imposed similar anti-trans laws which are damaging to these students' social and emotional development and detrimental to their safety. These anti-trans laws harm not only transgender, but all student athletes on a psychological level. In another article published by ACLU, Chase Strangio and Gabriel Arkles, pinpoint arguments which advocates of anti-trans laws attempt to use as grounds for passing such laws about trans athletes. This article invalidates these arguments with support from medical and mental health professionals. The first claim states that participation of trans athletes hurts cis women. This claim attempts to divide women under the guise of protecting cis women. Not only does this reinforce sexist concepts that women are weak and need protection, it also, quote, "invites gender policing that could subject any woman to invasive tests or accusations of being too masculine or too good at the sport to be a real woman." Furthermore, this divisive tactic of banning girls from athletics because they are transgender undermines the cohesion of a team mindset and endangers extensive benefits students gain from participating in sports. By contrast, including trans athletes promotes values of non-discrimination among all student athletes. Another claim anti-trans advocates make is that transgender athletes' physiological characteristics provide an unfair advantage, over cis athletes. I thought I muted that, sorry. Physiological characteristics provide an unfair advantage over cis athletes. In the legal declaration by Dr. Joshua D. Safer in the court case Hecox versus Little, he provides medical evidence that trans women athletes actually have lower levels of testosterone than the average cisgender woman, providing them with no advantage over cisgender women athletes. Inequitable school dress codes across genders. For centuries, women's bodies have been a source of mystery, awe, shame, and vulgar slander. The patriarchal societal expectations have been policing women's bodies, what women can wear, and what they are permitted to do with their bodies, i.e. abortion rights, for just as long. Considering school dress codes, this practice of policing female bodies is so deeply institutional that parents seldom view these expectations as problematic. Parents, teachers, and administrators in school districts concern themselves with minimizing distractions in school, yet they do not seem to understand how their misogynistic rhetoric regarding school dress codes not only impacts their female student population, but also has a profound psychological impact on their male population. Scott Richardson, author of Gender Lessons, Patriarchy, Sex Typing in Schools, uses the example of one school's decision forbidding girls wearing yoga pants. He posits this narrative put out by administrators objectifies, sexualizes women because it wasn't stating that yoga pants were indecent, but that they, quote, distracted boys. Richardson points out that boys are also damaged by this rhetoric because it, quote, sends a message that boys can't possibly act responsibly around girls and women who wear certain things, end quote. I gathered a sampling of dress codes from 3 different high schools in 3 different school districts in order to illustrate the misogynistic language still being used in many schools today. For conciseness, this paper includes only the misogynistic language rather than the complete text. School 1, male students, no large holds, sleeveless shirts, no midriff skin showing. Female students, no tube top shirts, no cleavage, no more than 1 to 2 inches of midriff showing. Schools 2 and 3, no tank tops, halter tops, tube tops, and or spaghetti straps tops, no exposed midriff, no exposed cleavage, no tops that expose the back or part of undergarments, including racerback tops. Skirts and shorts no shorter than fingertips when arms are extended downward to the sides. No see-through, backless, or tight form-fitting clothes that are too revealing. While typical dress codes found in schools today do not specifically target female students as blatantly as these examples, these dress codes still target female and LGBTQ+ students because they tend to ban things that only female or LGBTQ students would wear. And they tend to require clothing that is not easily available for female students. For example, spaghetti strap tops, yoga pants, and leggings, which are often banned by most dress codes, are generally worn by females. Guidelines like the fingertip rule state students' shorts must be longer than their fingertips when their hands are down at their sides. While longer shorts are easy to find for boys, basketball shorts, for example, most girls' shorts available in department stores and especially in fashion clothing stores are too short to accommodate these dress codes. Not only does this verbiage send the message that boys are unable to control themselves and that girls are required to cover up in order to accommodate them, but it implies that female students' education is not as important as boys' education. The teenage years are a critical time of growth for girls' self-image, and female bodies often go through drastic size changes during this time. A shirt might fit appropriately to regulation on one girl, but might show cleavage on another, allowing the school to effectively punish a girl for having larger breasts. Examining the fingertip rule again, a girl with long legs and arms is punished for wearing longer shorts than someone with shorter arms. These distinctions in the dress code can have a negative effect on a child's self-esteem during a pivotal developmental stage in their lives. Transphobic, misogynistic rhetoric, sticks and stones, but words in fact hurt many. In Dude Your Fad, Masculinity and Sexuality in High School, C.J. Pascoe provides several examples of ways in which schools institutionalize heterosexuality and male masculinity, as well as male dominance, which align with patriarchal societal expectations. From subtle reinforcers of these concepts, such as school posters for prom and other highly ritualistic school dances, to sign-up sheets for student sports, which deliberately segregate students by gender, to the commonly accepted vocabulary teachers use, to the materials used in teaching which reinforce heteronormative concepts and exclude material which demonstrates any homosexual relationships. The list of these reinforcers goes on and on. The final area of misogynistic language found in public schools is among the student population, namely bullying. In her article, Like Walking Through a Hailstorm, Discrimination Against LGBT Youth in U.S. Schools, Miriam Dwighter outlines the significant lack of protections in place in many public schools across the United States, which embodies the continued bullying, exclusion, and discrimination of LGBTQ+ youth. This paper's purpose has been to delineate how the misogynistic language used in dress codes, sports requirements, and other documents in public schools is exclusionary and undeniably causes immense harm to LGBTQ students' mental, emotional health, and social development. In 2020, 18 states introduced legislation that would ban transgender student athletes from participating in school sports. In 2021, 31 states introduced similar legislation. These examples of legislation which has had a disastrous impact on not only the LGBTQ+ student community, but also their cisgender peers, merely scratches the surface of the transphobic, sexist, and misogynistic rhetoric that schools use absent-mindedly on a daily basis. A basic example of this is the common use of the term "you guys" in order to address a mixed gender group of people. If we imagine addressing a mixed gender group of people as "you girls," the backlash from the audience, I'm sure, comes easily to mind. It is quite clear that LGBTQ+ students face a myriad of precarious barriers to their basic human rights regarding their social and emotional development and their personal safety, while trying to gain the same access to education and extracurricular activities as their cisgender peers. The question remains, what can advocates do to change it? Educate. We as educators are charged with the privilege of arming students with the best tool that we can, knowledge. There are a substantial amount of resources available that anyone can access in order to start re-educating themselves, their colleagues, and of course their students about gender identity, gender affirmation, and inclusion. In the references of this paper, I have included a guide from the National Council of Teachers of English as a prime source for historical backgrounds of neglect and hostility transgender students have and continue to face in school environments, which also stands as an excellent guide for educators as it illuminates methods to include, support, and celebrate trans and gender diverse students and families in schools. This guide serves as excellent educational material for teachers in order to create a positive, affirming curriculum for teaching gender studies in public schools. Also included in the references of this paper was a leading source for statistics regarding LGBTQ+ youth and their level of risk for being bullied in school because of their gender identity and/or sexual orientation. However, in reviewing these sources, I discovered that stopbullying.gov, the website, has been removed by the current U.S. administration. In my earlier research in 2023, I noted how that source explained that bullying puts all youth at increased risk for depression, suicidal ideation, misuse of drugs and alcohol, experiencing sexual violence, and engaging in unsafe sex practices. For LGBTQ+A youth, that risk is even higher. Affirm. For our transgender and non-binary students, one of the greatest things that educators and parents can do to support their mental and emotional well-being is affirmation. The NCTE website explains that educators should assess their schools to determine whether adequate support, resources, and curricula exist for trans and gender diverse people. Professional development for all teachers is crucial in order to help them address trans-related topics in daily conversations with affirmation and care. Schools must also ensure that trans-related materials are accessible to both students and educators. Indeed, even small changes such as using inclusive language in the classroom, gender-neutral pronouns like they, them instead of he, she, or him, her, and using words like parent instead of mother or father makes a difference. To be truly inclusive, educators need to understand how multiple identities intersect, especially for trans and gender diverse students of color and those with disabilities. Remaining vigilant in the fight against white supremacy, ableism, and colonial gender norms is inextricable from supporting gender diversity. Resources like GSAs, LGBTQ+ affinity groups, and inclusive curricula should reflect diverse experiences across race, class, religion, disability, sexuality, and culture, acknowledging how these identities shape each person's experience of gender. Making a conscious effort to think critically about what we teach and what we say sends a powerful message. It says that we care about all of our students' mental and emotional health, that we see them for who they are rather than what society tries to say they should be. And it provides a strong example for students, parents, colleagues, and others to follow. Thank you.